I got something really cool to show you guys today. So yesterday I got a new Monstera plant in the mail, but this is not like your standard Monstera discoecious. So this is a rare variegation of the Monstera discoecious called a Monstera Mint. So I got this from BWH Plant Co. I'll have a link in the description if you guys want to get one of these plants for yourself. But when you get it, it's going to be wrapped in plastic and it's going to have sorghum moss at the top. You want to make sure you take the plastic off and remove the moss as soon as you get it. And if the soil feels dry, you should water. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to repot this and give you some tips along the way. So let's garden on. So before I get into what kind of soil to use for your Monstera plant, I want to get into choosing the right pot. So these are two pots I had lying around my house. I didn't want to go out and buy a new pot. No need to spend more money when I already have some pots around my house. So I like this pot better as far as the color and the design and everything. And it has this water tray right here. But I felt that this pot was way too big for this plant right now. I also had this pot lying around. And even though I don't like the design of this pot right here, I feel like this is a better pot because it's not too big and it's a good stepping stone to go from this size container to this container. As you can see, you know, it fits this plant a lot better than it will be for this pot right here. So this pot will be way too big. Look at all the extra space that it's going to have. So for now, we're going to choose this pot, repot this Monstera plant into this white and blue pot, and then as it grows, I can bump it up into this pot. So first up, let's put this blue pot aside. We don't need it right now, but we'll circle back in a couple months after I've given my new Monstera plant some time to grow and when it's ready for another repot. But speaking of repotting, I want to show you what kind of soil mix I'll be using for my Monstera plant today. So I say soil mix, but really it's a soilless medium or substrate. So this is a mix from Very Plants. It's called Molly's Aroid Mix. So this is going to be a good mix for say like a Monstera or another type of houseplant that's very similar to a Monstera because we want the water to drain really quickly. That's why this chunky mix is going to be really beneficial. So we don't want a mix that's going to hold water very long because then you're going to put yourself at risk for root rot. So this mix has pretty much all the ingredients that's in the bag right in front. So you can see visually what's in here. But as far as like what's in this mix, there's some core chips, cocoa fiber, there's orchid bark, expanded clay, worm castings, horticultural grade perlite, horticultural grade charcoal, and mycorrhiza. So this is going to be really good for your Monstera. So let's go ahead and open this up and start this repot. So repotting any kind of plant can be a little messy, especially when you're doing it inside. That's why I got this repotting mat right here. I'll have a link in the description where you guys can pick this up, as well as the substrate I'm using for this Monstera. I got them both off of Amazon. But let's go ahead and start this repot. So first up, we want to add some of this chunky substrate to the pot about halfway. So you can take your nursery pot and see if it's at the right depth. I'm going to take a little bit of it out. So now what I'm going to do is fill in the substrate around the nursery pot. You want to leave the nursery pot intact because this is basically going to create a puzzle piece for you. So you have the perfect hole and shape for your plant. So now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and take this out, remove it from the nursery pot. See that right there? And then pops right in. Alright guys, so I just finished the repot of my Mint Monstera. I want to show you guys how to identify the front and the back of your plant because that's really important. So this is the front of the Monstera and then the back's going to be right here. So you also might be wondering, hey, where's the moss pole and why haven't you added the moss pole yet? Well, to tell you the truth, this plant's still really young and it doesn't need a moss pole yet. But when the time comes, you want to add the moss pole to the back of the plant. That's why it's important to be able to identify where the front and the back are. So I'll be adding a moss pole to this plant when it gets to around 1 foot to 1.5 feet. At that point, I'll give you an update and do another video about adding the moss pole and show you guys how this plant grows over time. But like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm going to eventually repot this Mint Monstera into that blue pot and keep bumping it up, but making sure that I don't add it into a pot that's too big, because you don't want a lot of extra substrate or soil to be in the pot, because the roots kind of like to be a little bit root bound. So you just want to make sure you give your Monstera plants the right size and don't go up too large of a pot. So that being said, you also want to make sure you give your Monstera plant some bright indirect light. That way it grows healthy and it gets to that point where you're able to add that moss pole. But if you guys found any information in this video helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more gardening videos. Till next time, I'll catch you on the flip side of the garden. Thanks for watching.